call the Police Services Board meeting for September 21st to order. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is a traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda. Recommended motion is that the North Huron Police Services Board hereby accept the agenda for September 21st, 2021 Police Services Board meeting as presented. Do I have a mover of that motion? I have Board Member McGrath moving. I have Vice Chair McBurney seconding. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? None noted. Got the minutes from the previous meeting held on March the 16th. As due to COVID, we haven't had a meeting since then. Is there any member that would wish to move those minutes? I've got Member Middleton moves. I got Vice Chair McBurney seconding. Any questions or comments to those minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Was there any business arising from those minutes that any member would like to bring forward?
Just a question.
Yep.
I guess it's probably going to be handled here or later anyway, about the office. Is there anything that did come through? You'll report on that. Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We will move right into 7.1, which is the Detachment Commander's Report. I've got Inspector Unan from the OPP to talk to the report that was provided to the board. Inspector Unan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, and good to see everyone. I know we've been obstructed from meeting for a little while, so it's good to see faces again. So this report certainly will encompass June to August of 2021. I'll get right into the report. The report starts and speaks to violent crime in the town of Wingham, and I'll just provide some context to some of the occurrences, noting one sexual assault that was reported during the time period this year. That sexual assault was domestic violence related. As you know, and I'm sure all of you are aware, that domestic violence continues to be a plaguing society, and this municipality is no different. We, as the OPP and policing in general, advocate for a victim-centered approach. So any individual that's subjected to domestic violence, whether it's an assault or sexual assault, is certainly provided with the utmost support. The OPP recently has developed a program that trains more officers out on the front line to specifically deal with interviewing individuals that are victims of sexual assault, intimate partner violence. So we're sending a total of approximately 8 members from the Huron County Detachment to get trained for that. So that should enhance the experience and enhance the interviewing techniques of our members to make sure that victims are handled appropriately and the elements of the offenses are made out. So that's a good thing. There's 5 assaults noted for the reported period. The majority of those, again, are related to domestic violence. Those usually have a high clearance rate because the offenders are known, versus random assaults that happen during the summer, when individuals end up consuming alcohol and make bad decisions. Sometimes those are more difficult to identify the accuser, but in this case, charges are preferred in the majority of these cases. When you move to property crimes, you've got 4 break-and-enters. It's always good to see. It's not good to see break-and-enters. It's good to see that the trends aren't moving up significantly compared to the previous years. So break-and-enters, one of those actually happened to one of our members. His house was broken into. By a known, we believe, potentially known individual. So of course he's a victim. It's difficult being a police officer, and it doesn't matter who you are. When somebody enters your home, your vehicle, whatever, you get that sense of the victim side of things. So we did everything that we normally would do for anybody else in the public if their house was subjected to a break-in. There's two theft over occurrences that are noted. One is a motor vehicle theft. Oftentimes you'll find that vehicles that reach a certain threshold and cash amount. And Huron County is well known for its motor vehicle thefts. Harvest season is here, and I know the farmers park their pickup trucks here, there, and everywhere, and oftentimes the keys are left in them, which may seem kind of trivial, but oftentimes those individuals that are in those pickup trucks are individuals that are consuming crystal methamphetamine. They're the ones that are out there driving on the same roads that you and I are, and they drive like nobody's business. So we certainly keep encouraging our dear farmers who feed cities, as the signs say, and we believe that they do their part by putting their keys somewhere else to deter crime. Frauds, those frauds, all of them, sorry, I skipped over theft under. Theft under occurrences, there's actually 17 of those versus 9. A lot of them have to do with shoplifting and random theft occurrences where vehicles are unlocked. Of course, you run the risk if you lock your vehicle. 9 times out of 10, people are going to bust your window to get in there, so the lock are there for a reason. So again, anything that we can use to deter crime, crimes of opportunity, I'll call them, are good things. 5 out of those occurrences, the accused individual was identified by the victim, but they chose not to proceed with the charges. So for some reason, whether it's petty crime, some people will say, don't worry about it. Sometimes it's maybe somebody who's known in the community who's more violent, and the victim will feel reluctant to provide a statement to police for fear of reprisal or something like that. So we do the best we can and still provide the support that the victims certainly deserve. Fraud occurrences still continue to plague through electronic crimes, cyber crime. In another municipality, I think over the course of the summer, an individual parted with $5,000 of their money, another individual parted with $10,000 of their money. People call in and saying your grandson or granddaughter's in jail, but I do see a little bit of a trend where individuals are much more suspicious of those phone calls or emails, and they're calling us to report, and have kind of stopped that crime from happening on their end, but they're still reporting it to us. So that's certainly a good wave to see. Jamie Stanley, who's our community services officer, was not here, but was in an older folks' home today doing some education. So he continues to do those, and we're certainly open to any of those requests. If anybody in a municipality knows of an area where we can educate a vulnerable population, then we'll be there all day long. The mischiefs that you note under property crime are very just random occurrences, no patterns whatsoever. Mischiefs are very difficult to solve because they are so random in nature. The drug crime, 2 interesting occurrences in this municipality over the course of the summer. Our community street crimes unit were investigating an individual for significant property crimes, multi-jurisdictional from different counties all the way down to Chatham. And they were able to follow an individual just down to the Tim Hortons. They located him, arrested him, and got a substantial quantity of cocaine, crystal methamphetamine from him, and a bunch of other properties. So he was a good individual to get off the streets, and shows the value and the efficacy of our community street crimes unit. They're a unit of 4 individuals, partnered with Perth, that's 2 members, so it's a total of 6. And they have a sergeant that oversees them, and they are totally focused on drug and property crimes. So they're out and about probably when you can't see them, which is not a bad thing. And this is how they picked off this one individual. Another individual they were able to stop was on a motorcycle in Wingham, and he was found to be in possession of a significant quantity of crystal methamphetamine. So stuck in his backpack, the bag probably looked like yay big. Of crystal meth. So good to get off the street. We actually took and seized his motorcycle as a offense-related property. So we're allowed to do that, and we do that where we can, because it makes a bigger impact to the individual that's using his motorcycle or his car or whatever he's using, or his house, to commit crime. So those are two very good news stories for the municipality. Your clearance rates are what they are. Your property crime clearance rates are probably above average when I look across the entire county of Huron. So you can gloat or glory in that a little bit. So that's a good thing. Drug crimes, your clearance rates are 100% because the two occurrences that we had are related to those two individuals. So you can pat yourself, or we can pat ourselves on the back too, but it is what it is. Unfounded occurrences, again, are occurrences where there's an investigation that has to take place. There's resources dedicated to those investigations, but at the end of the day, there's actually no substantiated criminal offense that was committed. So the work is put in, and those are, I include those in the report. I don't have to, but I include them just because it demonstrates the work that we're still doing. Criminal record checks, I can still tell you the OPP is working on trying to develop an online system for criminal record checks. Right now, it's still the way we're doing it. The OPP believes that there'll be a significant efficiency in being able to go online, pay for your criminal record check, and then get it back. So we're still waiting for that. I'm anxiously waiting for it to see if it actually does what it's supposed to do. So we'll see where that goes. The next page, it speaks to the contract hours, and I mentioned this in the first Police Services Board meeting that I was here. I would suggest, based on the trends, that I don't do the math, but I would suspect you'll get some sort of rebate for 2020 if you haven't got it already, and I would assume something for 2021 is coming along the way. The hours are pretty consistent, I think, from when we started policing here, generally speaking, and the call volume is the call volume. And the hours are the hours. So, yeah. Your next page speaks to the traffic statistics. No impaired drivers for the reporting period from last year or this year. So you can take that. One of two ways. You can interpret that as we're not here doing impaired driving checks and we're not finding anything, or you can take that as the municipality is keen, they're educated, and they've got the message about impaired driving. I would suggest it's probably a combination of the two. But it's not for lack of proactive work in the community. No dangerous driving, no fail to remain occurrences. So those are, for the municipality, those are good things. And I would tend to use them as a positive versus trying to interpret them through a negative lens. I won't go through the entirety of your call for service billing summary report. It's a lot of numbers. I'll certainly field any questions that you may have with respect to that report. I'm glad I was able to provide it to the board. I was having some computer glitches from the OPP corporate side of things, but they were able to fix it for me. The bottom line hours on the last page of that document is where I would tend to focus. And comparing last year to this year, you're approximately maybe 300 hours lower last year than this year. So again, and it doesn't matter what municipality I report to or go to, that trend, it could equate to dollars and cents at the end of the day from a billing perspective, but that looks at your reactive calls for service in the municipality. So if those are trending down, that's a good thing. That means that things are safer in the community. It means that the operational pressures that we're feeling are slowly dwindling. Some of this I still am linking when I look at the entire county, and I see some municipalities starting to creep up a little bit to where they were in years past. I think COVID has an impact on that in some form or fashion. But you catch the wave while you can catch the wave, and hopefully that will equate to a lower bill. The averaging, usually they do, I know you're in a different situation until next year, the average is a 3-year average, right? So you want to see those numbers start to slow and slow. So your 3-year average equates to a lower bill. Again, I won't do the math for you, but hopefully that will be realized. What you don't want to see, you'll see in the report, there's a column that says time standard. The time standard does equate in some form or fashion to the amount of time or the weight we put on those calls for service and how they're billed. So an exorbitant amount of low time standard occurrences is probably better than a drug investigation or a sexual assault investigation that are very high in the time standard because we have to dedicate a lot more resources to that. So apart from that, that is the report, and any questions, I'm happy to answer them, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair McBurney.
Yes, to you, Chair Safe. I got a question in regards, I think it was the tail end of the summer there. We had a heavy presence in Blythe, and there was a lot of cruisers, even air support.
Yeah.
I was expecting maybe, I don't know how that's captured, but I thought I was going to see some kind of a spike in that period of time.
I'm just trying to remember. We had a couple things in Blythe. We had, memory serves me correctly, some stolen vehicle. Oftentimes, and it relates back to individuals who steal vehicles, so we don't pursue vehicles unless it's a life and death matter. And oftentimes we will, especially if the vehicle has OnStar, we'll contract OnStar, we'll give them a call. So instead of, I know which one you're talking about. So it's a stolen vehicle. And what we will do is call our helicopter, it comes out of Aurelia. Sometimes they're doing other jobs along the way, and so we just back right off. And there's a lot of resources around the area. It's almost like putting a net out, but then the helicopter or the plane will start to coordinate where we need to be, because they're just too dangerous to do nowadays.
Because apparently this individual that was being looked for was I think he was captured in Bristol, I think.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Sorry, and I forgot to mention, and you mentioned it already, about the office. So I think I flipped a message to the chair earlier in the summer. We have secured a location at FE Medill. I see it as a very beneficial partnership between us and the school. So we've got a couple of our officers work with, maybe not agreeing with that, but based on your facial expression. But that's fine. Yeah, fair enough. So we have officers have workstations there. They work with kind of like tablets. They're able to dock into there. They have a designated parking spot, and it gives us an opportunity to interact with the kids. It gives us an opportunity to be visible in front of the schools, and we have 24/7 access for it. So
I think it's fantastic during the school. No issue. I guess my concern always was the main street. And I don't see that being of any benefit to that part of it. Now, I have no complaint. Truthfully, I see a lot more OPP in this area every morning when I'm going to the Mortons. I see they're in town. That's not an issue. I guess what I've been hearing on the street is that the presence of the OPP on the main street. And what's going to happen when the schools are closed? So, yes, it's a great thing that they're up at the school now, the drug problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to see those kids, they're going to see what's going on. But the problems on the main street are still going to be problems on the main street. That was the only concern I had.
yeah, fair enough. So on one hand, you're saying the visibility has increased. You're seeing more police officers, which is good. When the school is closed, we'll still have access. So it's not confined to the school year. We'll still have access to that building 24/7, 365. They have to maintain the building anyway through the year, right? So we're there. I understand, I get your concern about a bricks and mortar presence on the main street. And I'm all for it, but I don't have the capital or the financial resources to do that. It comes with the OPP model, the integrated model. It is up to the municipality. If you decide you want a bricks and mortar presence on the main street, then that's up to the board to inform council of that and to provide the commensurate financial compensation for that.
Do you have a comment, Member McGrath?
I think it's important to the businesses on the main street. I think, I take a look here and I read where it says the thefts are down, this is down, and this is down. A lot of that has to do with the people that own the stores in downtown. But my wife, for example, probably loses 2-3 items a week through petty theft in her store. As Chris said, though, I'm not going to water the OPP every time somebody comes in here and steals a bra or steals a pair of socks, or et cetera, et cetera. She said a lot of times, I don't know what's going on until, I don't know how the hell she knows all her stuff, but they seem to know this. But I guess when you hear cases where everybody that has a business on that main street can tell you that if you go down the main street at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, you'll see the one individual is known as a major person to break into stores, break into houses, take his little cart and pedal up the street. And then you'll see him 2-3 hours later coming back the other way. That was my concern. Like that if the police, and I don't think we're going to have a day where police are going to be back walking on the street or what, I see them list well, but I don't see it here, and I don't think it's going to happen here. But on the same hand, I wonder if there was a presence of a building or an office, would it make a difference? And I think somehow that's gotten blown out of proportion of what we were looking for. You were not here at that time, and at that time there was a group of people, and a lot of store owners, etc., that were here that would have gladly put money into having an office or would have donated space. And that somehow got twisted that the town was going to have to pay for something. And I don't think that was ever the intention. However, I think the importance of having an office on the main street is important. Like when you go to Goderich, when you go to, I don't know if Clinton has theirs anymore, I doubt it.
We have a massive detachment there that takes care of that.
That's a little different. But, the one that was over at C4, are these ones still going, Exeter? They still have theirs, or there's a fight going on there, I understand.
Not on my part, but.
Right. But, yes, it's going to cost some money somewhere. And this is something I think that the BIA has to get involved in somehow. But if what I'm hearing is that it's getting to what Trevor didn't want to see, and that was it going through Aurelia.
Yeah, so the BIA has there has been no specific request that I am aware of from either the BIA or any member of the public that's requested a place on the main street. Nothing in writing that I have. Like we've heard this from you verbally, but nothing from anybody from the BIA perspective or anybody.
Nothing from Kaitenhoven?
No, what we had was a request from the Huron detachment. That's what we got. That's what the municipality got. Was the Huron OPP detachment on behalf of their members, looking for some place where they can go and use the bathroom, do paperwork, do stuff out of their car.
And this was done, Trevor, you're let's say you're about 98% correct on that.
Yeah.
I'll give you 98%. Because what had happened was a couple of our police, our OPPs, who are from Wyndham,
Yep.
and the police here in Wyndham had gotten a hold to Doug, who owns buildings on Union Street. That's where that got started. So Doug's partner's wife, who happens to work for my wife, okay, and it got to me, and I said, well, I'll talk to Trevor, I'll bring it up some night at a meeting. But they said, well, we think it's all been arranged. And my understanding was that these officers had arranged that with Kuyvenhoven. So then all of a sudden it went from that to saying, whoa, here, it
So-
just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, so what happened in the conversation of this potential was, yes, Doug had offered, Mr. Kuyvenhoven had offered some space.
Correct.
The OPP requested that to look at the space to see if it was functionality to their needs. That's what was happened. And at the end of the day, the OPP, I'm not suggesting it was a hearing detachment, it could have been somebody else, I have no idea, indicated to Mr. Kuyvenhoven that that wasn't going to work for what they needed. That's where it ended. And that's when Inspector Yoon, from their last meeting, indicated that they were working on something that they couldn't tell us at this point.
Correct.
And that's when the message came out about the school, with the partnership with the Avon Maintenance School Board, that that's what had been produced. So, I mean, arguably, I want to make sure, I want to have a sense here. Even when we had the municipality's police force, we did not have a building on the Main Street.
Pardon?
We did not have a building on the main street.
Well, Trevor was
No,
just
Trevor, we
over
didn't, but
here.
we had big signs out here in the front of the town hall, police office. We had it coming into town, police office. And nobody is asking, I think this is what I want to get away from, because I don't want this thing misunderstood. I think nobody is looking for a police office, a sort. Somebody is looking for exactly what was in Seaford, exactly what was in Goderich, was always a little bigger at that time because they requested it when it became OPP. But almost like a drop-in center is what I
That's what they have. That's what they have there today at the school.
agreed. Now, do you think little old Mrs. Jones is going to go up to the high school?
Mrs. Jones isn't going to be able to go to the high school. That's not what it's there for. It's only for the officers. It's not for public interaction, which was communicated to this board in March. Any building that is any association to the hearing detachment, when they were to bring that office, no different than the one on Bristol Terrace, you as the public could not go to that office and request service. There was nobody there. You had to call using looking for service. There was not an ability it's for potentially interviews. There was potential, but there was lots of conversation with Inspector Union in March that says this is solely for the officers to do the paperwork that they need to do, have their lunch, have a break, whatever. It was not meant to be a place for interrogation, a place for all this other stuff.
So just to give you some reference, so Goderich has provided the building. There's no signage. The only signage there says police officers don't report here. So the whole premise behind closing all of the other officers, consolidating, was to have one reporting location. So there are no members in the hearing detachment that report. And I understand that is a concern. But yeah, we're not bringing sexual assault victims to the hospital. We're not bringing, to the high school. We're not bringing assault victims, or we can go to them and make arrangements. We're not there to watch the kids, right? Because we don't want that to be out there either. We're there strictly to go to the bathroom and do some paperwork, and that's it. And I know different municipalities have different senses of what they think they need, or if you want to make a building, go ahead. If you want an increase in foot patrol and police presence downtown, I can make that happen for you. If you're concerned about visibility, even though you've told me that visibility has increased from seeing police officers in the community.
I don't have a personally. I personally do not have a problem with, and it's not me that have, because I'm not in this. And you gotta remember, I leave here at 7:30 in the morning, I go to Westall, sometimes I get home 8 o'clock at night. But I don't hear a complaint. I haven't heard complaints. You have, okay. I have not heard complaints about no presence. I mean, I used to get a kick, my wife used to say to me, geez, I don't see any OPPs. I said, honey, you got to go to Tim Hortons in the morning. I guarantee you, 4 times out of 5, you'll see Wade either sitting at the fire hall, okay, or you'll see an OPP sitting out in the front of here, or you'll see one sitting down, Joan, next to the building I used to own.
That's great, but they leave.
Well,
Then
they
there's
got to
nobody
leave.
here
Okay,
the rest
but
of the day.
But I'm sorry, I have to accept that because that's the agreement that was made. And you know, it took me 10 years to agree to all of this, but I mean, that is the agreement. The agreement is they will come here, they will patrol. You won't know a lot of times when they're patrolling. But on the same hand, I don't know if you could phone and ask for an OPP today and not probably get one very quickly in this area.
I will just say,
That's,
if you call for the OPP for service and it's a 911, they will be here. They're not coming tomorrow, they're coming now.
yeah,
But if you call administration and say somebody's, I'm listing a rake or a something out of my shed, are they going to race to your house? Probably not. I mean, arguably, the conversation we have, and that's what the municipality has done, is the argument has always been, it's a cost for service model. You are paying for somebody when you call the service, you get somebody. Do you necessarily need somebody in the municipality 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's what we had before? So we have to understand we're not going to have the same service that we had under the Wingman Police Service. We're not, because that's not what we got. But I understand exactly what you're saying, Member Middleton. If we've got concerns about foot patrols, presence at certain times of the day, those are operational things that absolutely we can talk to Inspector Union and say, if this, and I mean, store owners are saying, well, I'm not going to call the police for every situation or every petty theft I get. The problem is, if they know of somebody, as you've indicated, who is there at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever, those are conversations that need to be had with the OPP that says maybe they don't or don't know that person. It doesn't matter. From an operational perspective, this board and any individual in the municipality or the county can contact the OPP and ask and say, there's a suspicious character. Can you please look into him? That's possible.
There's a lot of homeless right now, and they're not too far from where I live, and I believe someone slept in my patio last night. I can't prove that, but it looks like somebody was sleeping there. And they're not far from the river. And, I'm sure that they know all about that, but it is an issue.
So, and ironically, I just did a presentation for a wide swath of people about homelessness, and I can bring I can give some more information to the board if you're interested in it about homelessness. It is a problem, and it's too bad you couldn't listen to the presentation tonight. Not that I did, but some of the other ones. When it's laid out in the economical sense of how much it costs between 2016 and 2021 to get a house in Huron County. Like you're talking like average price is $270. Now the average price is $616 or something like that. The average wages, and when you do the comparables, the wages aren't matching. You need a combined income of about $73 per hour to work. That's to afford a house comfortably in Huron County right now. Those are the metrics, right? Which is which is kind of startling. But you, comparatively speaking, you've got it pretty good here when it comes to homelessness. But we work all the time with the county. There's a homelessness task force. But when you talk about the minor thefts or the homelessness, you got to call, because if we don't know, I can't report on it and I can't do anything about it. So even the trivial ones, there's ways to report things online, so you don't even have to see a police officer. And what I'm sensing, I guess, is the municipality is still transitioning from the Wayne Police Service to the OPP. There is that's my sense in the community.
I'd just like to make a comment about the office situation. We know we have, and so that's great, and I think that was a really good idea. But I think there's another issue where we know what we would like to have as well. And I don't know how we have to move forward, because we have different issues that we want to talk about regarding that. So how do we do that? How do we say from this board that we are interested in a bricks and mortar show on Main Street? How do we do that, Trevor?
Well, how you do that is that if it in my mind is part of the conversation needs to be if that coming from a recommendation from this board for the purposes of sending a recommendation to council for their input in their decision. Council is going to decide wholeheartedly whether that is, because with that bricks and mortar discussion, as Inspector Union has said, there is a price to it.
Sure.
There's a value, which now is because the police board doesn't have its own police service, the municipality's got to pay for that. So that's going to come to council. My suggestion is if that, what I'm struggling with from this board's perspective is I've heard it a couple of times now from yourself as well as board member McGrath, but as Councilor McGrath board member McGrath has mentioned, is that this community, this board hasn't heard of any issues from the level of service that they're getting, and the statistics are actual statistics are less. So I mean, from an overall crime perspective. So I mean, from a service level, this board needs to look at: are we providing the residents of North Huron and typically the residents of Wingham? Because as I was going to mention for Vice Chair McBurney's comment, he wouldn't see that commentary in these reports, because these reports are based in the town of Wingham, not necessarily here in county or that area, because you're not in that. That's a different board. With the new boards that are coming from the province, then it should be more integrated. So I mean, the mandate of this board is to ensure that we're providing information to Inspector Union about, are we getting the level of service that we want for the residents of the town of Wingham? And if you guys are saying that we're not getting that, then we need to, if you think a bricks and mortar thing is important to that, then the only thing you can do is provide a recommended motion to us to submit something to council, and the council will have to take it from there. But what I can tell you is the council hasn't had a conversation about this bricks and mortar issue, and the reason why they haven't is because they're concerned of the fact that the OPP had a bricks and mortar option, and they decided to remove it.
What if it's no cost to the town?
But what I'm hearing, Joan, that's what we thought in the beginning. But from what has come back to me is that once you put an OPP sign on that building, okay, it's now the town's responsibility. See, our intention is, from the people that we had talked to, we're saying, okay, if it was going to cost us $500, $800 a month or something to keep that building, because in the beginning, it was strictly one of my concerns when I first heard about the OPP move, was one of these nights, we're gonna get an old-fashioned storm, okay? We are gonna get swamped, and there's no OPP gonna leave here and go to Clinton, or come from Clinton to come here. I've driven the road. I was a traveling salesman for 28 years, driving these roads, and it's not happening. I mean, I remember somebody stood up and joked and said, what, are they going to come on a skidoo? Maybe they might have to. But the truth of the matter is, so our thoughts at that time, when it was first mentioned to me, was that if they needed a place to stay overnight, there was a place there, but it was just an office. So what I'm hearing now, Trevor, the last thing I want to do is go back and fight with council about that, because I know what's going to happen. However, to try and move it one step further, I spent because we have no cars to sell in any of our car lots, I had a little bit of time to do, and we have to sit now at our front door and register people when they come in. So I had time to do some looking at some of these numbers. And when you look at these numbers, the number of hours from say a year ago to now, most of them are down by 100, 150, 200 hours. So I don't want a permanent thing. I don't want to see personally. I'm sure that people downtown would. But my thoughts are that once a week or whatever, a couple of officers are walking, they walk from one end of the main street up to the other end of the main street. I guarantee you within one day, that'll spread through this town like wildfire. God, did you see the OPP on the main street walking? I don't want to add a bunch of hours. That's not my intention. My intention is though, even though I do see a presence of OPPs here early in the morning, okay, and I do see them in cars, I don't see them on the main street. And I'm sure there's a reason for it, but if anything, could some of these hours that we're not using be dedicated, like through you, of saying, hey guys, let's spend a little more time walking the street or something and winter.
And totally, I mean, and that is when the chair speaks of level of service, if you want to see more visibility in the downtown core of uniformed police officers, then I take that back and I say, listen, guys and gals, this is a concern of the boards and a concern of the communities. Let's see if we can increase those all day long. That is how this works. If you're not seeing, and it's certainly not, there's still a lot of members that have a vested interest, right, in the town of Wingham, right, whether it's the Wingham officers or the ones that live around in the area.
Yep.
Yeah, all day long. I did it for Goddard, right? Goddard said, listen, we don't have an office there anymore, we want to see more police officers. Well, no problem. So, and I'll track those numbers. Is it going to go up by hundreds? Probably not.
I don't want to.
But I mean, I can come in here lock, stock, and barrel. I'll blow all your minds. But just remember, the more we're here, you will start to get complaints. I'm talking because the enforcement, it's a balance, right?
And I mean, this is the conversation that I had at the time of the transition between the OPP and the Wingham Police Service. Because the argument was, well, we've had them for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What? They're not here.
The town of Wingham has not had 24-hour policing, I'll bet you, for 25 years. We never had it when I was on council. I was there 17 years.
Well,
They always closed from 3 in the morning, okay, until 6:30 in the morning.
Well, I can tell you right now, if they did that,
Yeah.
then they were telling us, the board, that that was a lie. Because the schedule was
They were on
24 hours a day,
24
7.
hours.
Right.
But there was never 24
It doesn't,
hours.
at the end of the day, the argument for the OPP was, and I'd be very clear, is when you call them, they will be here. Do you necessarily need 2 or 3 officers patrolling the town of Wingham, which is a square kilometer, if there is no call for service? And my answer is no, you don't. Because when we have that call for service, we could have 15 officers here And it's not costing us any more than it was before, because of the resources and the billing model that comes into play after this transition. I think what I'm hearing though is, but I honestly, and this is some conversation that I've got to have with the BIA, because I'm fine that, I'm fine as a past, owner on the main street. You've had this conversation with people in the community. I can tell you right now, as a counselor for 6 years, I have not had one conversation with anybody about the level of service that we're getting from either the town of Wingham officers or the OPP since the transition. Not a one. And I know as your member, McGrath, as your wife is a retail salesperson on the main street, these are concerns. I get it. But the BIA is supposed to be the voice for the Business Improvement Association. And if the Business Improvement Association is not bringing it to me as a member of council who sits on that board, who is now also the chair of the Police Services Board, how do we make a recommendation on level of service? Because I'll tell you right now, as Inspector Yoon said, you can have 3 or 4 people walking down the main street. And I guarantee you do that for 2 weeks in a row, you might have some businesses say, I don't want them. So, it is a balancing act. And I think we need to talk about it from a BIA perspective. And I will bring that to the BIA and have that conversation that says, to the members, as a downtown core, are you happy with the level of service are you getting? And if you're not, then you need to let this board know. Because that's our mandate here, is to help Inspector Unin go back to his people and say, this is what level of service they want. And agreed. Do we want to add a whole bunch of hours that we don't necessarily need? No. But could we target certain places at certain times of day that maybe are concerns? Absolutely. And I don't think that's an issue. At least not from Inspector Unin's concern, and at least not mine.
And please, if you're getting information from certain businesses, the more specific that information. I'll give you a very quick example of a fellow that used to honk his horn down in Exeter every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning because he was ticked off at his neighbors. So that comes through, right? It's an email right from the municipality all the way to me. So the next morning, I'm like, okay, Constable so-and-so, 2:45, you're there. Sure enough, I give the man credit for his tenacity and perseverance and honking his horn, tick off his neighbor every morning. And sure enough, and we educated him with some tickets. So he has a written reminder of why he shouldn't do that in the morning. Those are the things that, but if it's a business-related thing, and your wife's saying, you know what, at 2 o'clock or between 2 and 3 o'clock, this is where I'm noticing some patterns. The more specific it is, then we call that, in the OPP, we do a focus patrol. So what I do is, it allows me to extract data and then report to the Police Services Board to say, we spent 12 officers, spent 35 hours, and this is the result. Nothing was found, or we arrested 6 people, or whatever. So that's what I will do with the foot patrol. And then I can report. And I did that earlier, I forget in the year.
You did that at the crosswalk that was designed by the down at Carling Terrace, after down by Carling Terrace, when we were redoing that road. Before we started that road, there was a concern that there was no crosswalk there, and they did a focus patrol to educate people before, and that brought that information back to the municipality that says, yeah, there's probably a good idea to put a crosswalk there.
Yeah, and like I say, I think this is going a little again beyond what, like, I don't hear, and I'm sorry, I have not heard complaints about the I'm asking very simply, would it be possible, okay, to take some of these hours, just not to just to show a presence?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The focus patrol.
Not to do investigations and everything else, because.
But you can't have us in like that. You can't say, I just want this,
Yeah.
right? Because to say that, then I can't say, no, officers, you're here and you're only to walk up and down the street. It's gonna spin off, right, in investigation.
Yeah.
What it should spin off is, here's another thing we did. we have our big office in Clinton. While they're having the construction there, while people were breaking into the businesses just down the road. So our members go in and they talk to all the business owners.
Yep.
How's it going? What can you do to fortify your business a little bit? Those are the kind of things maybe that you're more interested in.
Definitely.
Okay.
I'm not into, like I said.
Don't be surprised if it goes off into investigation.
But that's fine.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I'm only saying what because I asked Chris, and I said to her, she said, Bill, I lose a sweater,
Yeah.
okay? I don't want a nuisance. Why should I have to take up his time? But now I'm listening to what you're saying. She should maybe call and say, hey, I had a theft in here or such and such.
Did you have video surveillance in the?
No, well, yeah, I paid thousands for it, and guess
Beautiful.
what?
We can get that.
Not there anymore.
Oh, that's too bad.
Right.
So we take that information to inform you, take that information, put it out on Twitter or Facebook. We identify criminals. Because usually petty, and that is, if you don't want that, then
No,
you
I've
can't
seen
suck
them.
and blow at the same time, right?
I think it's a great time.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of my
Yeah.
Facebook and it says, do you know this person?
I think ultimately what I want to make sure is what you're saying, Member McGrath, is quite possible. But I mean, arguably, we need to be specific a little bit about what we would want Inspector Union to make date for his officers. And I mean, as Inspector Union said, you can't suck and blow. So you can't just say, just walk down the main street, because that's not going to do anything either. Because then the officers are going to say, what the hell am I doing here? I could be doing something of more value. What they ever considered value, maybe that's not. If we're okay, there's not a concern from the board from a mandate perspective about doing that. And if we want that as a recommendation from you to the board to make a recommendation to Inspector Union to do that, you make the motion and we will vote on it. And if it passes, Inspector Union knows his marching orders to do what we want.
I'm here to listen to your concerns, and this is the whole premise behind the board and regardless of what you do, I'm totally going back to the members and saying, we need to, here's what I'm hearing, is we need to be in the community a little bit more. That's what I'm hearing from the board. So allow us that opportunity to do that, and it turns into whatever it turns in. But what I won't do is and what you can't do is go here, go there. So you can't operationally direct us, but I'm here to listen to your complaints and provide a solution to that. Bricks and mortar is easy. You want to give me an office downstairs where you want to see the officers pop in and you want to put a tablet in there and it has a little sign that says OPP? No problem, right? Does it cost the municipality anything? Probably not. Do they want to do it? I don't know. That could be right on the main street, right where you used to have them, or maybe closer to the front of the office. You got a little OPP sign that says that. There's a cop here sometimes, but they don't report here. If that kind of would address maybe the part of the bricks and mortar without anything really substantial or impacting the finances, maybe that's, but to us it's been, nope, we're not doing that.
And that's the feeling I get.
Yeah.
So, but if this board wants to send that ask to council, council needs to take that recommendation and make a decision.
Well, I just think, Trevor, it's good that we talk about this, because the thing is that we hear it, and I agree, I could go back to the BIA and say, why haven't you done something about this? Or whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, you're gonna get people that are gonna bitch no matter what. That's gonna happen. I am just trying to stop something in its right there. I went through one, just to give you a prime example. Yeah, I went through one with my daughter, who lives across on Edward Street there. They knew there was drug deals going down there every night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. They had videos of it, okay? They called the OPP, said, we have the videos, everything for it. The one that the window got smashed there. They had the video, they had everything. You know what they were told? No good to us.
That's quite possible.
Exactly. So these,
But you can't paint that with now video that you call and give us every time is going to be no good.
Right.
Like right? But
But
it's,
this showed the people, it showed who they were, showed the license plate, it shows everything.
okay.
And like, that happens,
Yeah.
okay, and I can understand that. But on the same hand, then you have residents, okay, who are going to go back and say, well, no, what's the sense in doing that? Because I'm amazed, Trevor, by the amount of houses in this town that have cameras. I can't believe how many cameras are in this town, that, like, everything's going on in their house.
So when was the incident that you spoke of? Because you piqued my curiosity. So, and that's why we have these conversations, because
6 months
now,
ago?
on Edward Street.
Yes. The place is still boarded up.
Right.
It's Ontario Housing.
But I mean,
They finally moved them out of there.
so,
Okay, Ontario Housing.
yeah, so I mean, arguably, okay, I want to make sure that I want to keep this kind of focused a little bit in the sense that we can't brush every incident with, well, they didn't do anything for us,
Exactly.
because that's not fair. We're not police officers. We don't know the law.
Correct.
If they say it's for a reason, it's like going to the doctor and saying the doctor tells you to take your heart medication. You don't question it, you just do it. Because he's educated and that's what he's supposed to do. My concern is that just because individuals, and I'm not suggesting this was the issue, but I mean, I've heard this where I don't get the resolution that I'm looking for, so then I don't do it again. And what I'm saying is, even if you don't get the resolution you're looking for, the OPP is taking all the information, even though they can't process a case, they're going to take the information and use that information to educate their officers in whatever case. And I'm not an officer, so I don't know. But they're not going to broadband the internet and say, oh, by the way, we've got all this information on this street in Wingham. Keep an eye out for it. Like, they're not going to do that. So a lot of the work that's being done, in my opinion, goes unnoticed, and we only hear the bad things. But yet, when we come here and we talk about, the two large methamphetamine things that come off our street, those are wins in any way, shape, or form.
100% agree with
So I think, as my conversation is that this board has really two mandates. Well, really only one. One is determine the service level that they want. And if this board wants to change the level of service that they want, we have to communicate to Inspector Union, but we also now have to recommend and make sure council is aware, because council is the one who writes the check. This board doesn't have a bank account. So, and the other comment is, if you want something of council, we have to put it in a motion and a recommendation to the council so that they go on their agenda and they communicate it. It may or may not be the right answer, but it's a question, and that's what this board is required to do. And if that is what they want, each member has the opportunity to put a recommendation, we vote on it, and move it forward. I'm happy to do that.
So you mean we have to all put an individual recommendation?
No.
We're just going to tell you.
One member can make a motion to ask council to look at something. If I can get a seconder, I will take the second, and if we vote on it and we all accept to agree to that, then the clerk will the recording secretary will take that motion and put it on the next council agenda. That's how boards work.
I have no problem with what he's saying, Joe, and I think he's 100% correct. However, Trevor about 20 minutes ago made a statement that he was going to talk to the BIA. Let the BIA send out something to these business people on the main street.
Oh, it's just postponing it.
Oh, I understand that. Well, let them, now, maybe they'll talk to you, maybe they'll talk to me. Will they put it in and say, yes, I don't have enough presence, or whatever? Then we can do something. I don't have a problem with that. I think do those steps first. I mean, I,
For clarity purposes, the BIA is another board of council, so the BIA can also make recommendations to council, right? So if the BIA says we've talked to our membership and the membership has expressed these concerns, we've passed this motion as a board.
That motion will
Comes to
motion will not only come to council, but it'll be copied to this board because we are responsible to the police services, to the police service.
the only two concerns seem to be both BIA related. Okay, should be BIA related. One being they wanted the presence of the OPP on Main Street.
Correct.
Okay? The second being, do you feel you have enough service here now? So if the majority of people on the Main Street feel, like you said, and both of you have said, you might get a lot of people saying, I don't want to see an OPP on Main Street. I don't want to see an OPP walking up and down the street. They're pretty damn stupid if they don't, but that's their privilege. But what I'm saying, if they don't want it, you and I are beating our heads against the wall.
But that's only going to a limited number of people.
No, that's going to every business person on the Main Street.
Yeah, but what about the residents? I mean, that
But
only goes.
they did send a survey out to the residents. Not that long ago, there was a survey sent finding out.
Like, yeah, I think we're talking about two different things. So one thing is the conversation was the bricks and mortar discussion on the Main Street, where it's not now. It's at the school.
Yep, it's at the
Okay,
school.
that's where it is now.
Yeah, correct.
The question has been, one, is what I've been hearing from you members is if we have something on the Main Street, it's potentially going to deter stuff on the Main Street because people see that an OPP sign or whatever, okay? If that is something that's important to whoever, then fine. But what I'm here also, and I'm telling you this because I am not hearing the same concerns that you're hearing. And I've been a member of council for 6 years. And I was the one that put his name on the transition to the OPP. So, and I've said that. And I said to the
Maybe you piss
person,
people off enough they don't want to talk to you.
and that's fine. But I'm only one municipality member. I mean, council has the opportunity, and the clerk and the CAO are also, right? So, I mean, there's a numerous amounts of opportunity. Councilor Vice Chair McBurney sits on this board too. So, I mean, what we have to look at is if we think there's a needed for additional level of service in a certain area, then that's what we need to ask. But if we don't, and I would argue in certain situations it looks like the statistics doesn't warrant it, but these statistics are whole town of Wingham, not geared to one certain area of the local community. But I mean, residents have their ability, if they have issues with the operations of the OPP, to call Inspector Unit directly. And that's what they expect. When they call me and say, I have issue with these people down by the river, I say, that's fine. That's great that you're telling me, but you know who you need to talk to? You need to talk to the OPP, not me. It's fine to tell me that, but I have a meeting with Inspector Union once a month or once every 3 months, and all you're going to do is tell me I'm just going to call around and turn and talk to Inspector Unit. So I mean, if they get it from the person, you would call the Wingham Police before. The OPP is no different.
Did you bring business cards?
No. But I mean, the clerk has my contact. I can only tell you in different municipalities, it depends on the level of relationship that I have too. So if I get it's not preferential treatment, but if I get an email from the chair that says I've had 3 or 4 complaints, and it doesn't have to wait till a police services board meeting. It depends how you folks operate. Then I may be more inclined, because it's coming from the chair, to say, hey, we've got this issue. Okay, fair enough. Because it's coming directly to me. I don't look at every call for service. I got 100 officers, and I got an entire county. Like, I don't look at every call for service every day. I have people for that. But if the chair flips me an email, or a board member flips me an email and says, hey, listen, we've had this, then I'm like, okay, fair enough. Let me see what I can do. It's not preferential treatment. I do prefer people still report through our communication center or call us. But
to me, that's what the relationship is here. So you have quicker maybe access to me, but
I was thoroughly amazed with the talk that was going around this town. Like I say, I don't spend a lot of time here, and I don't get into a lot of idle bullshit that I just don't believe in. But I was amazed of that you hadn't gotten calls, particularly about the trail,
Yes,
okay? Because I've heard some nasty ones,
yes.
and I've also heard some nasty ones, Trevor, of down by the ballpark. And I've been amazed that I've seen the OPP down there, okay? So I was amazed that you hadn't gotten calls, particularly about this trail, because it got nasty from what I understand. Now this was again spoken to me as an individual, and my suggestion of those were because they were nasty things that were happening. I said, whoa, talk to an OPP. And I was totally amazed that you hadn't heard about that. Because
sometimes
this
it
trail,
doesn't make its way to
have
me.
you not heard, Trevor? You live in this town.
I heard exactly the same thing that you heard,
Right.
in the sense of that there's people, and I've suggested the same people that I've said, call the OPP. I mean, and the one thing that we have to understand from residents is, and I've said this to residents before, if you are thinking that you are going to get a resolution immediately to something that may or may not be illegal, you're sadly mistaken. Like, I mean, if it's not illegal what they're doing at the time, or they can't prove it, then you're not going to get the resolution you want. I mean, this is the concern that I have, is that when they say, well, because I've heard this babbering on about, I call and they don't seem to do anything. I've called them 4 or 5 times. Yes, I understand that. But it takes a long time to build a case sometimes about people.
Well, I think, Trevor, honestly, people are becoming a little more scared, a little more and I'm not going to get into specifics on this one, but what I heard was going on that trail was mostly with teenagers and older women that were walking that trail. And I just thought, holy Jesus, like that, this is not Toronto.
It's close to my house.
Yeah, and that one, I thought, so when I had spoken to these people, I said, no, I don't, if you don't want to make the phone call, I can gladly make it for you. But honestly, you should be talking to an OPP. Stop on them when they're in town, talk to them, and explain what's going on. Now, what's just happened at the universities, the University of Guelph, University of London, these kids, or parents of these kids, are probably a little more, when they hear some of these things that were going on that trail, are a little more scared of, their 15-year-old, 16-year-old daughters walking that trail down there. And my granddaughter walked there, and she said, Grandpa, I don't have any problems. And she said, but she also takes a 130-pound dog with her when she's walking that trail. But if that had gotten back to your office, I'm sure somebody would have been up here walking that trail as an unmarked OPP. There's no doubt in my mind.
But I guess my question is, how do we know that it didn't happen? How do we know that didn't happen?
I don't know that.
Because, as Inspector Union has said, not every call reaches his desk.
Right.
Officers are going to deal with those calls as they come from the communications people. I mean, arguably, what I'm hearing, these are all instances not only happen in the town of Wingham, they happen in Goderich, they happen in all over the place.
Yeah.
In communication to the OPP is no different than it should be to the Wingham Town Police when we had them. If you have an issue, find an OPP officer. They will answer your call. That's the conversation that we have. These instances that we have need to be reported. We want them to be reported. As a chair of Police Services Board, I would be more than happy to walk down the main street and say, if you've got an issue, let me hear it. But I will tell you, there is not anybody in this municipality that doesn't know my phone number or what I look like.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, if they're not, if they haven't reported it, they've been, I personally have told 4 of these people to call your office.
But part of this is here too, is that even if it's not reported, now Inspector Union has heard some communication from board members that he can use some of this information to go back and ask questions. I mean, that's okay.
But as you said in the beginning, homelessness is a problem. It's not that it's a problem. There's some of these people that have had a rough time. I mean, I understand that, and I can see that. I see that in Listowel, I see it in other communities. But on the same hand, I've seen videos on Facebook there, like one up the street there, who you know quite well. And I mean, it showed the video of the guy going right into a garage and coming out. And I would hope that one of those would have gotten to the OPP. You know, these are the things that I think are necessary. But I hear it's continuously going on, and I've yet to hear of anybody being charged. Now I also sit back and say, shit, I get so sick and tired of these guys working 30 hours on a job, then going over and some judge says, yeah, okay, $50 fine, thank you very much, have a lovely day. And the guy's back doing the same thing 24 hours later. But I think I'm more that I don't want to see it happen in our own community. It's going to happen.
So what we're having, so what we're doing here tonight is exactly what our mandate is, to bring concerns and issues that we've heard over months of time to the inspector. We can't solve the legal system. We're not here to solve that because we'll be here for 6 years, 60 years. Ultimately, what I'm hearing is that's the thing, is those things. If there's a level of service that this board wishes to talk about or wishes to, provide council with recommendations, by all means. If we just want to give information to Inspector Union and let his judgment take precedent, that's okay too. I'm willing to do either one.
Well, I think the one thing I've learned from this here is that you want this information sent to you.
I want it sooner than, so it doesn't help me.
It doesn't help a month, 3. Yes.
No, you want it as if something is going on, like your office should have been called 3 months ago when this was going on. It's still going on today.
Yes.
But these major things were happening 2 and 3 months ago, particularly in the summertime when they were living in the
If you're hearing of themes,
yes.
then please don't wait 3 months to tell me about it, because if you're hearing from 3 or 4 people, the clerk has my email.
Yep.
Please, by all means, email me. Unfortunately, my phone's attached to me when I take it to the washroom. That's how, in all seriousness, that's the demands of the OPP. It takes it, I've had half showers before and still on the phone.
Yeah.
Please email me and I will address your concern and I will get back to you. Yeah. And it might be, came here, did this, saw nothing. Could be, we're on top of it. Just be patient. We're working on something bigger. Or it's, we did this, or us did.
And I think that's the important thing.
Yes.
And even my daughter, this is one thing she said to me, Dad, if I hadn't been told, okay, that look, thank you very much for the information.
Yes.
We know what we're looking for.
Yep.
And I know they knew what they were looking for, but nobody, I think it's the communication part.
I agree with you, 100%.
And that, because all of a sudden that place has been straightened out. Okay, between Huron County Housing, and all you gotta do is drive by the building, the window is barred up, the individual has been booted out of there, nobody knows where he's at, fantastic. But they've taken another drug lord off the street. I think they were probably looking for somebody a little higher, and that's fine. But if the communication had gone back to those 3 residents that submitted these pictures and said, we've documented this, okay, but we're looking for something little. I think these people would have said, thank you very much.
And sometimes we have that luxury of following up.
Yeah, but no, I get it. It's and that is really again a victim-centered approach. If you're being victimized, then you need the follow-up. And I will say it's a struggle even for me to get the officer something because they are busy.
Yep.
To be able to do, yeah, I did that break and enter occurrence and they charged us, but maybe we didn't call back. Right?
So one of the things that I am hearing though is, if we're having issues with occurrences being reported, and an individual is not getting a response, when I say response, I mean a response that's not necessarily what they want to hear, but a response in the sense of where the follow-up is, then that's a concern we need to bring to Inspector Union as well. And I mean, that's the part where I hear, and I mean, this is the concern, Bourne McGrath, is when, if we hear these issues and we send them to, Inspector Union, you copy me and copy the clerk, I usually will look at those requests, and I will look at, and I usually go within a month or a month and a half, and if I don't hear anything, I usually respond back to the OPP that says, just wondering how we've made out on this response. If nothing has happened because of some other issue, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not going to bombard them, but I'm also going to make sure that we have these issues reported. I think it's a communication discussion. It's not preferential treatment, it's just communication. But we also need to make sure that these instances are being reported. If they're not being reported, we're not going to get anywhere.
See, the beautiful thing, I think that's happened here in Wingham, and we're fortunate about it, is that we do have officers that most of these kids, and they're not kids, but my daughter's 40 years old, most of them grew up with them, they know them, they can talk to them, okay? And probably what is happening in some of these cases is they say, okay, when I see Julie next time, okay. And I can accept that, Trevor. And I don't want anybody to leave here with the thought that you're not doing the job.
No,
Okay.
No, I don't think
I really don't. But the one that really, Joan, scared me more than anything, I don't get scared easy, but the shit that was going on this trail, Trevor, and I couldn't believe that counselors hadn't heard of this. Because those two trails, the people, and I find that so hard to accept, Trevor, that the people down on Park Drive, okay, couldn't even use their backyards, it was that bad down there. Now, you know a bunch of guys down there because you played ball with them. And they couldn't even use their backyards because of what was going on behind them in that bush. Now, the last time I was down there with Ralph, we were standing down there, and there was two cruisers down there. So when I was standing with Ralph Metcalf, we just looked at him and said, Ralph, obviously they're doing their job. Okay, so I knew, okay, and Ralph was quite happy when he seen that. But this trail was the worst I heard. And that was coming from the public. And there was people actually afraid to walk that trail because it got so bad down there. And you shouldn't have that.
I just want to provide some context. So, and it goes back to Chair Sykes' point and Inspector Union's point. The OPP can only investigate what is reported. We as the municipality can only pass on what we hear about.
But that
right?
You haven't gotten any calls.
No, and everything we get, we pass on, and the OPP is great at following up. So I'll use the example, and it's not just like the previous regime before, right? So with Dave Cinco was great for that as well, right? So to use the example, we got a ton of complaints because there was people speeding past the daycare when at the time for drop off. So we passed that on to the OPP. They had people patrol the area around drop off right away, and
Stop the problem.
exactly right. We can only pass on as a municipality what we hear, just like the OPP can only investigate the calls they get and the reports they get. Right? It's all data driven and report driven. What I would say is, if you're hearing those things as a board member, you should either be bringing those to the board or
That's why I'm bringing them
right,
up here tonight.
or sending me an email, and we can pass it on
Ultimately,
right away.
I think we're hearing tonight is don't wait for this meeting.
That's what I'm saying.
Do not wait for this meeting.
Please don't.
Please don't. like, send them to me. I will send them off. If you're gonna send them directly to Inspector Unit, that is fine. All I ask is you just copy me so I know what's going on. That's all I ask.
No, I just assume follow the procedure you asked for.
I am fine as this board. We're all equal representation, right? Just because I'm the chair doesn't give me any more authority than you guys. We're all one vote. I'm okay with you guys sending stuff. If Inspector Unit is okay with it coming from a board member, as a chair, I just want to be involved in the sense that having a copy so that if a follow-up needs to be done with Inspector Unit, then I can do that later. That's all I need to know.
And the municipality too, the 1-800 number for the OPP, we have that. It sits at our front counter. When people come in, our front counter staff can provide that number, right? So we have all the mechanisms in place. It's just a matter of people have to report these things that they hear about, so that data makes its way back to the OPP for investigation and follow-up.
The one thing I will say, and the OPP made this very clear during the transition, even before transition, was they take the data that they get from reporting and do it with statistical analysis. So they analyze where all the issues are, and that's where if there's a more crime being happened, at least from at the time when they talked to me, was if there was more crime being happened in the northern part of Huron County, well, that's where they flood the area. They're not going to flood it to a farmland where the farmer doesn't want to see a freaking cop. They're not going to do that. Arguably, that's what you want in your police, to be proactive, to know that's where the issues are. Let's go there and deal with those issues. Obviously, they'll move all over the place because that's what they do. But I think ultimately, the response of providing the incident information is not only valuable to the incident itself, but for the overall policing model on how we manage policing in this province, at least in this county. So I mean, that's what I'm hearing. Let's continue to push our residents. It's not if you see a crime or something. If you see something that is suspicious, or if they are concerned about something, let's flood the call. The call will be directed on how. But if they call, what I also will say to somebody, do not call the communication line if it's a 911 call. Call 911. They will be there immediately with more than one. I mean, I mean, our society is no different. Like 25 years ago, we may have been able to walk alone, right? There's a lot of people now that don't feel comfortable walking alone in small Huron County. Like, I mean, that's what we have to deal with. Society's changed. We have to move with it. Is there any other questions? I mean, we've talked a lot about this, and I mean, I hope we've resonated on. I've got some direction from the board members, at least based on the conversation, that I'm going to have a conversation with the BIA. I will communicate. If I don't go to the meeting on Thursday because I'm away, I will send a message to the chair to directly ask the question, to get him to talk to the membership, to see if there's issues that they would like to talk about a level of service in the main downtown core. But otherwise, I will bring that feedback back to the board, and it won't even be that next quarter. When I get the feedback from the BIA, I will send it out to the BIA, to the board members here. Okay?
Perfect.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So we've wrapped that. There's no staff reports.
You have the motion to accept the...
Oh, yes. Sorry. Thank you, Secretary. That the North Huron Police Services Board hereby approves the Detachment Commander's Report for the September 21st meeting as presented. I've got member McGrath moves. I've got member Middleton seconds. All those in favor? Carried. No staff reports, no bylaws, no correspondence. And that, as I'm seeing this correspondence part 2, if you as members of the board get emails from residents about issues, feel free to submit them to the recording. If there's personal information on there, the recording secretary will make it so that it doesn't obviously, because these minutes are publishable.
Yeah, we'll
Redact what we need to redact to make sure that privacy laws and all that stuff is kept confidential if there's issues like that, okay? Just to make sure that we're all okay with that.
And also, agenda item 5 is delegations, right? Anyone has the ability to appear as a delegation before this board, right? So if members of the public have concerns that they want to express to the board, whether it be about the trail or about certain areas within the municipality, and they would like the board to kind of speak to and be aware of where service should be targeting, right? They have the ability to fill out a delegation request form and be scheduled to appear as a delegation in front of the board.
Okay. So we have new business. So obviously, since our last meeting in May or March, we have a member, our community services member, James Zaretta, he wasn't in the March meeting. Since then, in your package, I had received a letter at that time indicating that he had moved to Kincardine. He still obviously owns a piece of property, at least at that time he still owned a piece of property in Wingham, but he indicated that it would be in the best interest of the board probably to resign. So obviously we're bringing his letter of resignation to the next board meeting. We weren't really sure, and in context about what we were doing, we weren't really sure what direction we were going to give. Council's going to have some discussion about what we're going to do from that community representative function. Obviously, because since June the 8th, the Minister of the Solicitor General has talked about a coordinated board approach, meaning a board for an entire Huron County, not necessarily just individual police service boards. That has stalled. which I don't think anybody would be surprised that it stalled at the Solicitor General due to COVID and due to a number of other things. So council needs to decide on whether we're going to request another community services rep at this point, or we're just going to wait until at the time of that new board direction from the Solicitor General. So we don't know what that looks like. Council needs to have that discussion. I'm just bringing you guys the letter of resignation that we need to approve and send it off to council to let them have the discussion about that community safer service rep. So North Huron Police Services hereby accepts with regret the letter of resignation from James Zaretta as a community representative to the North Huron Police Services Board, and further that the letter of resignation be forwarded to council to address a community representative vacancy on the board as per 27(6) of the Police Services Act. Do I have a mover for that? I've got Vice Chair McBurney moves it. Do I have a seconder? I've got Member McGrath seconding. Any questions? Not hearing any. All those in favor? Carried. We don't have any public here, so we don't have a closed session. So the next meeting will be held here on Tuesday, December the 21st at 7 o'clock. Because of the new schedule and because of the Police Services Act that we have to have 4 meetings, that will cover our
that would be 3 for the year.
Three meetings for the year, but I mean, arguably there has been other municipalities that have had only 3, and I'm pretty sure the federal or the municipal Solicitor General and everybody else has bigger fish to fry than worrying about our Police Services Board only having 3 meetings during a pandemic, especially when they don't give you the option to have a video, a Zoom or electronic meeting. They do not give you the option under the Police Services Act.
Police Services Board meetings are done by Zoom. I've not had a in-person meeting.
And whether that's right or not.
I'm just telling you, I haven't had one in-person meeting.
Yeah, and
I've been to
the context behind that is the powers to meet electronically are under the Municipal Act for any boards or committees established under the Municipal Act. This board is established under the Police Services Act. So the province did not change the Police Services Act legislation for electronic meetings.
Again, I don't think anybody's going to bother you about
No.
that.
But
Yeah, it's...
But that to what your information is going to spark a lot of discussion from a municipality's perspective,
Yeah.
because we haven't had these meetings because we couldn't under the
I
pandemic.
was a
So
little surprised that I'm like, why are you having in-person meetings during this time? Like, everybody else is doing Zoom. It's so much easier to be honest.
absolutely. So
Anyway.
okay, so there we go. Yeah, December the 21st. That's Tuesday at 7 o'clock here at the Town Hall Theater. And there being no further business before the North Huron Police Services Board, meeting is hereby adjourned at 8:30. Do I have a mover of that motion? I've got Member Middleton moves. I've got a seconder. I've got a seconder is Member McGrath seconds. I do want to say thank you for the conversation. These are honestly great conversations to have during this meeting. So I appreciate everything that's been brought up tonight, and I got some homework ahead of myself, but I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. All those in favor? Carried. We are done.